The Struggling Artist Record Club is a vinyl record subscription service where I hunt and curate the best punk and punk adjacent music out there and mail their record to your door each and every month. Imagine finding your new favorite band from across the country without ever having to leave the house. It doesn't get much better than that. The excitement of discovering new music just got that much easier. As a member of the Struggling Artist Record Club, you are going to receive some of the best music you've ever heard from bands you may never even heard of. Whether you've been collecting records for years or just starting out, the Struggling Artist Record Club is designed specifically for you. And right now, all new members get a Struggling Artist Record Club exclusive along with the monthly selection. So head to StrugglingArtistRecordClub.com, pick a membership, and start building that collection today. Oh, it's funny, Jonathan, was you called me out on on Scott's podcast, and you're like, well, it looks like I saw you first. Then you were like, sorry, Trev, or something like that. And I was like, damn, because like we had talked at Bree's wedding, and I was like, I got to get back to you. I'm sorry. And then like I forgot again because I'm a fucking my brain's all over the place, you know.
Yeah, I think we started talking. Yeah, I think we even started talking before Bree's wedding.
We did, and and again, like I just like I'm a scatterbrain, dude, and like
listen, I completely understand, man. I'm married. I have 3 kids. I work. You know, I have, you know, the podcast is on hold, but, you know, I had that going for a while. And with the last couple releases we put out on the label, like my brain's all over the place, man. So don't feel bad, man. I had to bust your balls.
For sure. And you know, like we run in the same circles. You know what I mean? Like I remember hearing you on Paul Neal's podcast. Okay. You know, for Don't Quit My Day Job. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I mean, we run in the same circles, and you got a lot of you put out a lot of music.
Yeah, we've been crazy. Yeah, shout out to my boy Paul. I think I've been on his show 2 or 3 times, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's a big supporter of what I do, and I'm a big supporter of him. And yeah, the label, yeah, we've put out a lot of stuff pretty quickly over a short amount of time, for sure.
So you're out of Youngstown?
Yeah, I was born and raised just across the line in Pennsylvania, right on the border of Pennsylvania and Ohio. So yeah, coming into the scene, you know, there was a couple mini scenes going on, and one of the scenes I got heavily into was the Youngstown scene. And just because when I was playing in bands, I was living in a little town called Newcastle, which is...
I know Newcastle, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, about 50 minutes north of Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. But yeah, in my late teens, early 20s, I was playing in bands. We made a lot of connections over in the Youngstown area. So it really made sense to like I've always kept my feet planted in the local scene, whether it was when I lived in Pittsburgh or when I, you know, now living in Youngstown or going to shows like closer to Erie and Cleveland. I've always kept myself rooted in what was going on around me because I saw that was going on in other scenes. And as much as I love like bigger bands, you know, like, you know, Green Day and Rancid and all that, I really enjoyed what was going on locally, and being able to go to like Knights of Columbus Hall shows or like basement shows. And, that was pretty interesting of a beginning at the age of 14, 15 years old.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And the same, dude. Like I've always been pretty like heavy into like the local New England stuff more more than like, and I liked the big bands, like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
I like going to the local shows. I like listening to their music because there's a lot of different stuff out there, right? Like it's not.
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously going to be exposed to the bigger bands. That has to happen. I think for me, it was about '93. I
Mhm.
started like I people started like showing me like, well, before punk I was in like more like indie rock, like more like Dinosaur Jr. and like Lemonheads and stuff like that,
Like,
early
yeah,
REM.
yeah, like that rock alternative era or whatever.
Yeah, the college radio stuff that they were like replacements and stuff, Husker Du. And I really didn't, and then I started getting into bands like I got in like Beck and like Sonic Youth, and um I really didn't know what that was, but I'd gotten into Nirvana when I was 10. So Nirvana was really kind of the first band I remember like actually being mine. It wasn't somebody showed me them, or it wasn't a family member, my dad's music or my mom's music. I remember Nirvana was very much that catalyst for me. But going back to the local scene, it was like, well, every scene starts that way. Once I started realizing that, reading up on those, like the California, the Seattle scene, the Athens scene, whatever, I realized, well, there's a scene right in my back door. You know what I mean? There's a Knights of Columbus show going on, 4 or 5 blocks from my house. Why am I not going to do that? And then once I started doing that, once I realized that was going on, then I just, I grabbed on and held tight and never let go.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I kept tabs on what was going on out in Boston, with all the local stuff for a long time, and then like I moved to Massachusetts, and like, I actually I ended up in I was in Cranberry Township for a year.
Oh, no, no
Yeah,
shoot,
yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not far at all from Cranberry, man.
No, yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember Youngstown being close, and like, so I was doing a lot of work. I mean, the thing about that area was like you could go anywhere. Like I was driving down to Parkersburg, West Virginia every night with work. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, and like, but like you can go from there. Like you can, I remember I could get to like Detroit and not like maybe an hour and a half or something like that, or two
from
hours.
from where I'm at, it's about 4 hours.
Yeah, okay, maybe
Yeah,
that.
about 4 hours to Detroit. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like it was all kind of like it was very centrally located, I remember, for being like, and the thing about Pennsylvania that I didn't know was like the weather is different everywhere you are.
yeah,
It was crazy.
yeah. You go up near Erie, it's like Buffalo. Like it's same. But then down here, I mean, we get snow, but like not like Erie and Cleveland do. Like there's no way I could do that. I have no interest at all in that lake effect stuff. No, I'm far enough. I'm an hour and a half south of that, and that's exactly where I want to be, man.
I remember one night in Cranberry, I woke up and I looked and I heard a noise. I looked outside and they were plowing. I'm like, holy shit, it snowed a ton overnight. So I went back to bed and I woke up like 4 hours later and it was all gone. Like I was like, what the fuck? Like it fucking melted. Like, it was just I don't know. It was cool though. I had fun. The only thing that sucked was I got there in September of 2019. And
Oh, so I was gonna ask you if you ever went to the rally.
no, I didn't get to do anything.
Oh man,
With my
oh.
job, I had my business, so I was traveling all the time.
So you were down there in 2019.
Yeah, I moved in. I September of 2019 is when I moved into like this
I
like.
wish I would have known. Like I
Yeah,
was I was
I didn't
still
know
living in
anybody.
Newcastle then.
Yeah, so I didn't know anybody, right? So I worked basically up until like the new year, and then I was like, all right. So then things kind of like slowed. So the company I contracted with was sending me like I was going to Saginaw a lot. I was going out. I was going back to Tennessee because that's where I started like contracting with them.
Okay.
Then they would shoot me to Columbus, and then you know what I mean. So I was traveling, and like it was cool, and like I was making a lot of money, and then like things were like, all right, we're not gonna like. I fixed all what I was like a consultant. I went there and I fixed all these like areas that they had. Like
Oh,
I
okay.
was like finding new contractors, like vetting them and like training them and this and that. And then like so things started to slow down. I'm like, all right, cool. Now I can kind of like dig into where I'm at, right? Like with
Mhm.
Pittsburgh and everything. And then COVID hit.
Oh yeah, yeah. That set you back up north, huh? Real fast.
Yeah, yeah. So by So like my lease was, I moved there in October. That's right, because my lease, they let me out early in my lease because they found someone to rent the place in September. So I left in September. So I was there for 11 months. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, and I went back to Massachusetts at the end of that. So
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. Yeah, a lot of crazy stuff happened during that time, and it was just like a funny story. Right as COVID was starting to like be in the news, my brother and his wife live in Las Vegas, and we went up there. It was January of 2020, and it was right around the time Kobe Bryant passed away, and they had
yeah.
also like really weird stuff. And I see all these people wearing masks, and we've heard rumblings of it, but it was like right before COVID hit, and it was like it wasn't as busy. There wasn't as much stuff going on. It
Mhm.
was like right before the whole COVID thing hit, and then when COVID hit, it was like, okay, now we're shut down for however long, and didn't get to do anything for about a year and a half.
Yeah, yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. Now,
Yeah,
did you have the label then? When did you start the label?
yeah. Actually, funny. I turned 40 in May of 2021, and before that, I was talking to my wife. Like my kids are getting older. Now I have two of my kids are adults, 20 and 18, and I have a 14-year-old who still lives at home. My youngest, my son, and um my kids were getting older, and they were coming around. My older two were coming around less and less because they live with their mother in where they live at. So they were coming around less and less often. And when they did, you know what I mean, they were kind of preoccupied doing their own thing, social media, gaming, that kind of stuff. And I was just kind of like, I haven't played in a band since 2005. Uh, I I see these other kind of labels going on. Like during COVID, I was talking to a lot of my friends, who I knew in the past who were like in these like music groups. So I'll give a shout out to my buddy Trev, who played in the Hollywood Blondes, and he's now with Post Ramon. He turned me on to like the Dummy Room and stuff like that. So like I started joining these rooms and started seeing like, oh, people know who the Hollywood Blondes are. People know who Johnny 3 are. People know who the Prozacs are. And these were all bands like back in the day. I was like in the Cheapskate. Like I had friends that were on that label, and I got to like check out the Guts and like the Leftovers and like stuff like that. Like so. I noticed that these people were still out there, and I already had a connection with a lot of those people. And I was like, well, I'm not doing anything. It'd be pretty cool to like, we're all old heads now. Like, it'd be pretty cool if like we reminisce and talk about music. And I've always been told like I should do like radio or something. And I joke around. I say I have a face for radio, um, a face for podcast too, because I only did audio.
Yeah, yeah.
But but and then my wife's like, why don't you do it? Like you have friends that you've been friends with for 20 plus years. Even though you weren't necessarily in the same scene as them, you knew them from coming through town. So why don't you just do it and see, take each episode at a time, so, and that's pretty much how it started. It was just, I had my best friend on the first episode. I had Jay Prozac on the second episode because I had a relationship for a couple of years already with him.
Mhm. He's from out here, right?
Yeah, he's near, I don't know, what is it, Ware?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, or something like that. I think he's from Ware, and he lives in one of those towns over by there. Yeah, but I remember seeing them when he played with Johnny 3 and a couple other bands that ran through as well. And we started talking like around like right before COVID started, and we would talk all the time. And me and Jay became really good friends, and I decided to have him on the second episode, and then my best friend being the first one, they're like, well, we don't know any, like that's just a local dude. But but the episode did well. But then when we had Jay on, it was like, okay, now we're getting this like different demographic. Now we're getting the old cheapskate records crowd. Now we're getting the, I don't know, second tier, Ramones core crowd now. And, and we just, and then from there, we just went off and started having bigger and bigger names on, and, eventually getting people like Jughead from Screeching Weasel on, and some other people. Like people I never expected that we would get, and it just happened very organically and very quickly. And I was really surprised by how well it caught on and how fast people were coming to me about it. Like, instead of trying to reach out and find people, people were coming to me like, dude, I want to be on your show.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it was really cool. Yeah. Like within like the first couple months, I was like, wow, this is bigger than I expected it to be. And I'm pretty proud of that.
So what came first, the podcast or the label?
Or podcast came first.
The podcast came first.
So what happened was we did the podcast. We started podcast at the end of May of 2021. And I think I had probably about a good 20 episodes up at maybe 15. And one of my really good buddies, his band had broken up like 6-7 years before. And this would have been like August of 2021, and they were doing a reunion show. And it was a guy we knew was in his garage, like out in the middle of nowhere, like out in the country. And all these bands were playing. And I was like, well, the name of the band's called Letters. And the singer from Letters is actually my partner in the record label, Mike.
Okay. Yep.
Mike Rodenboyer. He lives, he's from the same area I am, but he lives right outside of DC in Virginia. So I had a good time. I drove to the show. I caught all the bands, finally got to see Letters play, reunited. And another band came on my radar. They're called Gatlin. And I actually realized like I knew the lead singer from playing in bands back in the early 2000s, my buddy AJ. And we started talking, and I was like, dude, I really like your band. I loved all the bands. And the next day, like I drive home, and I get home. I start talking to my wife. I said, listen, last night was really cool, but I got a little sad. I was like, our scene's always been one of those scenes where like bands don't stick around long enough to get stuff put out. They may put out like a 7-inch or like a 10-inch or whatever, and then they kind of disappear. Or they'll, play local venues for a couple of years and just fizzle out. And there was really no labels that were doing that, especially when we were like, we always joke around when I played in bands, we had our vanity label. That was our label that we just basically put out whatever you wanted to. And that's back in the day when you would record and then put it on your computer and then print, make CDs and hand them out at shows. So it was like, I got kind of sad. I was like, yeah, it was great seeing all these bands, but like nobody will hear these bands. And so the next day I called Mike from Letters and partner up with the label. And I asked him, I said, would you be interested in doing a record label with me? And because he had been playing in bands since the early 2000s, just like me. And he's like, yeah. And we decided he's really good with like the tech side of it. Like he knows how to get everything organized to get sent to distributors and stuff like that. And I kind of became the face because of the label, or became the face because of the podcast. So we decided to go, name of the podcast being This Is Just a Phase. We thought, let's just call it This Is Just a Record Label. And the very first release we put out was the compilation, This Is Just a Compilation, which actually features Mike on the cover from that night, show that we were talking about. That was from that show.
Hell yeah.
And we got 20 bands together and did that. And then we put out Gatlin, which is a band I saw that night. We put out their EP. And then we put out an extended reissue EP for Mike's band at the time called Letters. And then it just took off from there.
So like what goes into having a label? Like what do you like what do you look for when you're looking for a band, like that kind of thing?
Basically, like if I like you, if I like your music and I like you as a person, I'm a pretty good judge of character. I mean, we had one hiccup a couple years ago that I won't get into, but for the most part, I'm a pretty good judge of character. Um, I'm a talker. I like being around people with common interests, and I always made a joke. The label was punk and punk adjacent. I didn't want to be pigeonholed into a certain sound.
Mm.
My original goal was to do a label much like Lookout, where it was a scene specific label.
Okay.
My goal was to build up, Youngstown area, Youngstown, Pittsburgh, Cleveland area, like that general area. Um, but once we put out the Prozacs demos, we had more people outside of the scene coming to us and wanting to do stuff. So it became less about it, but it's always been punk or punk adjacent because I don't want to be known as a Ramones core band label. I don't want to be known as a pop punk label or a skate punk label or anything like. That's why I think our catalog's so diverse is because we weren't afraid of putting out something rockabilly like Dave Strong, like Dave Strong, and then the Feral House
I
Cats.
love Dave. I love
Yeah,
Dave.
Dave's a great dude.
He is a great guy. I've seen him play. We've we've hugged it out at shows when we see each other. Yeah.
I haven't got a chance to meet him, but my Mike, my partner, had. He went up to a show in like outside of Philly and got to see him play. So
that's awesome. Yeah, Dave was like one of the first people to be like because that I didn't know, to be like, hey, do you mind listening to some of my demos? And I'm like, I didn't know what I was like. I'm like, okay, and I just knew him because like he played guitar for the Hellbound Hitmen, which is like the psychobilly band, right? So. And then,
I forgot about that band. Yeah.
And then he sent me these demos, and it had like Little Girl and like all these other songs that were like not what I was expecting. I loved them. I'm like, these are so good. You know what I mean? And he's a great human being. I haven't talked to him in a minute, actually. I'm gonna have to hit him up and say you and I just did this afterwards.
I talk to him on a regular basis. Me, him, and Mike talk on a regular basis because, much like you, he was sending us like his demos, and I had known him because he had played with Jeff and the Guts for one of their albums, and then he played with Wimpy Rutherford.
Yep.
And then he also was playing with, was it the River City Rebels too?
Maybe.
Yeah, he was playing with somebody else too. So the name had crossed. Like, I've heard the name.
Yeah.
But he just randomly hit us up. Hey, like, listen, we have a lot of people in common. So we started talking. He started sending stuff. And I'm not usually, a huge rockabilly fan, but the rockabilly I've come across, I've always liked Reverend Horton Heat, stuff like that. So I liked it because it was pop punk meets rockabilly, and then he would like send me songs that had country tinges in it, and he was doing like he wasn't afraid. He's in the same age group as we are, so he's way past that. Well, you can't do that. That's what posers do. You know what I mean? Like we're way. We like I was definitely introduced to country and stuff as a kid. So yeah, like it was natural for me to get into kind of all country stuff like Wilco and stuff like that. So the fact that he was willing to kind of genre hop too, I was really like, it really excited me, and I remember like everything Dave sent me, and he was like, hey, I'm going to compile all these songs onto a release. Do you want to put out the CD? And I was like, absolutely. Like, it was a no-brainer. It was as quick of a decision as like the Prozacs was. Like, I was like, absolutely, whatever you need me to do. And we ended up doing CDs and cassettes. The only time in the label's history we did cassettes.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
They sold too. People went gangbusters over them. They loved them.
He's a good songwriter, man. He's a really good song. So like we had because he did like a dual release, right? Like it was you guys and then someone else did the vinyl.
Famous.
Yeah. So I ended up putting out the vinyl through the record club. I sent it to my record club members and it got real high.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's awesome. And it's cool. I like that. I like that because like, so I always get stuck with like people are like, they say the podcast is a punk podcast and it's not. You know what I mean? I have all sorts of musicians on here, and then it's like, oh, it's just New England people. No, I talk to people
Oh,
all
I've
over.
been deep diving your podcast. Like
Yeah,
once I realized where I could find it, because I got off Spotify
yeah, yeah.
and I jumped over to iTunes. And I was like, oh, he's on iTunes, so I
Yeah.
jumped in.
Yeah,
I
I get what you're saying about like not wanting to get pigeonholed into one specific thing, right? So, because like I talk to people from all over. Like I have, I've talked to a musician who lives in South Korea, and like I'm gonna have them back on. I think hopefully in the new year because they've got a record coming out. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like and like as far as like I guess punk, like it's just what I gravitate to, but like I do listen to everything. I do have like I've had hip hop people on the podcast. I've had I've had authors on. Like it's not what I did learn in the beginning was I needed to pick a lane, so I picked like because I was talking to everybody, and it just like you couldn't get a core like listener base with like being so sporadic from the get go, right? So
But I was afraid of that too. But you know what?
yeah.
Even early on, I'd have somebody like a bar, like a rock and roll, like kind of like a bar rock and roll punk band,
Mm.
and then I'd have a skate punk band on, then I'd have a hardcore band on, and then I'd have a pop punk band on. And I realized really early on, it doesn't really matter because most local scenes
Yeah.
are that diverse anyways. Like
Right.
I've been to hardcore shows and seen a ska band open up, or I've seen a doom metal band play with like
But
a,
yeah,
a
yeah.
Ramones core band or something. So wasn't weird for me to kind of not be genre specific,
Yeah.
or at least not pigeonholed to one style, one
Right. Right.
sub style of punk.
Yeah, so like I was talking to people like I decided it was going to be music, right? Like after cuz like I said I would have like an author on and then I would have like I had like someone that did like chalk art on at one point. You know what I mean? And it's cool, but like I had to like get into a lane, so I picked just music in general, right? Just overall music, people related to music, and then from here, like I've talked to people who are authors now. Like I've had them on, and the episodes do just fine now because I have a listenership, right? You gotta. So, but like, yeah, so I always get like stuck. Like people think I'm like the punk guy, and I'm like I'm not. I'm just a music guy. Like I just like music. I just there's a lot of and punk is such a huge scope anyway, right? Like,
Yeah,
like
honestly, like piggyback off of what you said, we grew up at a really great time for discovering music, and it's I know I have friends that are not huge. They don't talk music. They're into different interests and stuff like that, and that's totally fine. But I definitely immersed myself in like from Nirvana on. I delve into. I got music magazines. I when the early internet trying to get on message boards, and when I started playing in bands, networking with other bands, music became a very comforting thing for me. And I didn't have to be a genius to be a part of it. Like I didn't have to go out and try to be anything other than who I was.
yeah, yeah,
And it was really, I don't know, in 30 years later, I still feel that way. And I'm just lucky that we grew up when we did, because the way people ingest music now is just like, man, you're missing the best parts of music. Like you're missing the liner notes, and you're missing the smell, and you're missing the discovering other bands and their liner notes and stuff. So yeah, we grew up in a really great
yeah.
time, and
I
it's hard
just
not to have been obsessed with music back.
Yeah, yeah. I still buy cassettes and stuff, but like I treat cassettes more like an art piece than I do of like just like listening, you know what I mean? Because like I don't know, like it was something about unraveling a J card, an accordion like J card that's the size of a CVS receipt. You know what I mean? Like in
Yeah,
and you're seeing all the art and all like you said, like everything from lyrics to who they're thanking and like and like and like I I think like CDs are definitely like I know from like CDs are definitely still a thing too, right? Like because like what if someone goes to a show and they don't want to carry around a vinyl all night? They're gonna buy a CD. They're gonna put it in their back pocket, and then they're gonna, you know what I mean?
We definitely talked. Me and Mike talked about when we were starting the label about whether or not we wanted to do vinyl, and neither one of us. Both of us have kids. Both of us have jobs, responsibilities, all this stuff, and neither one of us could be like, you know what, we should invest in vinyl because realistically, we're going. When we started out, we were nobody knew who Gatlin was because when they originally started, the pandemic happened. They had this EP done, and it just stalled. And then we came in contact, and we decided we'll take those songs and then we'll add like live songs to it and make it like a deluxe version or whatever. Not a lot of people knew who Gallon was in 2021. You know, they were still pretty, and like shows were just starting to come up, so they were playing more, but like we were basically with them at the ground level of getting known. So we were like, well, we could press 100 copies of this record by this band that will play sometimes, but none of them are in a stance where they can go tour.
Right. Yeah.
So if we do, and we got to pay, say, anywhere from $1,800 to $2,200 to press 100 copies of this record.
Yeah.
And we got to sell them for 25. Nobody's going to make money off of this. And not that we're into making money, but like the band wouldn't even receive anything. Yeah. You know, it just seemed so bizarre. And around that time, Tim from Mutant Pop, he revamped his label, his old label from that, which I think stopped in like 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about doing like short runs. And I was like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. We can go press like 50 copies of this. The turnover is anywhere from 8 to 12 days. They're not super expensive to buy.
Mm-hmm.
We can give the band an amount to sell on their own, and then we'll see where we are at in a month. And then if we wanted to, we could go and do a second run. So like, and that was so much cheaper. You could do that. You could spend $130 with shipping to do 100 CDs. And it was a low risk, but a high reward. If this would move, that's a lot more money in the band's pockets.
Yeah, it makes
than
sense.
Trying to push vinyl when you don't even know if that vinyl is going to sell. But at least you have a $10 CD or a $7 EP or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's accessible. You can buy them at the show, and we were lucky. Like early on, we moved a lot of units fast.
Yeah, that's good.
But as time's gone on, the CD market is really hit or miss.
I think, you know, digital's probably the top dog, right? The top dog for music right now, as far as
our plays are high. The digital isn't the issue.
Yeah.
It's, you know what, we had a good run till about the beginning of 2024 was really the kind of the tip. Like we had put out 2023, we had put out like Dave, we had put out a couple other, we did the split with Faster and Louder Records, the Invading the Border. We did stuff like that, and those were moving. But about beginning of 2024, and we started putting out stuff in 24, we were like, yeah, we're not moving as many units as we used to. And it's the recession, it's the political climate, the things like tariffs, things like stuff like that hurts every label. I mean, we even had to go and basically stop sending international releases because the price was insane.
Yeah.
$24 to send to a CD, a pin, and something else to Germany. Like I can't do that.
Yeah. I mean, you're paying more to ship it than you are for the thing, right? So
Well, that's like we were doing stuff with Faster and Louder. It's like, okay, well, we literally had to be like, okay, Jordy, you handle it in Canada, I'll handle it in the United States, because we couldn't even pass things back and forth because of all the restrictions and the tariffs and stuff on Canada. So it's like, well, I partnered up with this label who we've put out 4 things with, I think. I think we put out like 4 releases with Faster and Louder. And it's like, we really can't do what we did because I could go send him a package for $14. Now it's double that, and sometimes they'll reject it at the border.
Yeah, yeah.
So what are you supposed to do?
Right, right. Yeah, it's gotta be tough at the moment for all that stuff, especially for physical release. Like it's just gotta be like
Yeah, physical release, and I hope things change. I mean, we put out a lot of really good releases this year.
mm,
We're just me and Mike talked about. It's like, well, what's the future going to hold? And go, we don't know. Let's just see what this takes us. We've been a label almost 5 years. I told him I'd at least like to go 5 years. Let's get like 20 plus records out and see where we're at the end of the day.
mm,
If it's not even about being lucrative. If people aren't buying them,
right.
then what are we going to do? If people aren't buying the physical releases.
Jesus Christ. How many things did you guys put out this year? I'm like I'm clicking on your Bandcamp and like I'm
We
like
put out
6 in and they're all 2025, I think, right? This is
okay. The first 2025 would have been Broken Barcodes
yeah.
and Feral House Cats, Duder, the follow ups reissue,
Mm-hmm.
the Lousketeers,
Tears, yeah.
and then Ricky Rochelle.
You got there's a Gatlin release too?
Gatlin was a single, yeah. Gatlin was a single.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, their full length is going to come out next year.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
That's a lot, dude. That's a lot. Like
2024, we put out 7 releases. 2024.
wow. Wow.
That was our biggest year. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There've been as many releases as we did. Yeah.
You guys like organize and plan when things are gonna drop, or do you just like, oh, we got to get this out there now?
We try to as best as we can. Like we ran into that with when the Lousketeers wanted to put out their CD because it's a brand new full length. It's the first full length in like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So when Dan and Val hit me up from the Lousketeers and we were trying to figure stuff out, they knew they wanted the specific date they wanted it out. And Ricky Rochelle from the Young Rochelles, this was his second full length, and he already put the vinyl out, so he was a lot more chiller when the CD came out. He goes, you know what, put it out 2-3 weeks after the Lousketeers, no big deal. You know what I mean? Because he also sells them through his store. So there wasn't as much pressure. I mean, but there were times where we had to go back to our format and switch numbers because something got done quicker than something else did. But honestly, it's Mike's really good at that. Him working with the templates and him working with the duplicator and stuff like that. Like he can go in and make anything look good. And a lot of the artwork that we did, had his fingerprints are somewhere involved in majority of the releases. So that's been really cool. At least, fixing it. If we ever ran into a hiccup, he never flinched. And I give Mike all the credit in the world because he bailed me out more than once getting that stuff done.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So like, what we see when you put out like a compilation because you've got a couple, right? You got a split. You got a couple compilations. Like, how do you get submissions and how do you figure out who you're going to use in the submission? Are you just strictly asking people, or are you making like a public thing where like, all right, you can put your submission in if you want to try to get on this thing?
First comp, we did a little bit of everything. I knew I already had connects. Obviously, JD from Jagger Holly. I was able to get a Jagger Holly song. The Prozacs, I was able to get a Prozac song. We had already had Gatlin out. We already had letters out. So that was a no-brainer. Every sampler or comp, you have bands that are representing the label.
Mm-hmm.
I did put some fillers out. Plus, I'm friends with other people who run labels. Johnny from Cat's Claw. 3 of his bands were featured on the first comp. They were one band was from France, 2 were from England. So we kind of, and with JD being based out of Austria, we had an Austria band. We had a South American band. So it was a little bit of reaching out to bands, putting out social media fillers, also reaching contacts. When you have friends who run labels, it's really easy. Like I know I can go to Brie with Allegedly, or I can go to, I can go to River Monster, or I can go to Sell Your Heart, or I can go to any one of these labels, Scott, DC Live. I can go to these labels and be like, hey, listen, I'm putting a comp out. I really like XXX. Do you mind if I put a song out there? It doesn't, it doesn't have to be an unreleased track or anything, but I would like to get these bands known. Do you mind? And that's what we basically did. It's a little bit of everything. The after the first one, I'm honestly, completely honest, even the first one, we had 20 songs. I think I had 26 songs on the first comp. We had 24 of them within a month.
Wow.
And it was like, and probably half of that was within 2 weeks.
Hell yeah.
It was, because, I heard we're both friends with this person. So we played with it. So it was just very organically. They realized that we were an up and coming label. A lot of the people were on the podcast. Probably about 10 of the bands that were on the comp were actually on the podcast. And just from there, it just became very organic very quickly. And that's been the way with, up until we did the 80s comp. I did put fillers out there, but half the bands on there were bands I already had connections with. And then I put some feelers out on some different group sites. And then that's how I got bands like the Remote Controls and bands like that I really didn't know firsthand, but contacted me because I put fillers out to see who we could get. And we got really lucky and got a lot of incredible. That's one of my, probably second only to the first comp. That's probably my favorite comp was the 80s comp.
Yeah. I forgot about it until I saw it on the Bandcamp. I'm like,
there's not a bad track on there.
Yeah, dude. I remember this coming out because I remember a couple of the bands that are on here that I know, and they were like,
Lame Ass Dads did a video for one of the for their cover. Yeah, that blew up.
Scotty Saints is on this one.
Yes. Talia, Lame Ass Dads, Gatlin.
Loud Love is on here.
My boy Vinny, yeah.
Dave Strong's on here. Yeah, I know. Like these are all guys that have been on the podcast.
Yeah, they're killed. I mean, every song we got, shout out to my boy Doug. He plays in a band called Neanderthal. He used to be with a band called what were they called? Powder Keg Culture. And he was doing Neanderthal kind of on the side, and they were like, "Yeah, do you mind if we do a Fleetwood Mac song?" And I went, "Yeah, let's do it." And they killed it. They killed it with that song. I mean, every single track we got from people, some were already recorded, like Los Coutiers did Kokomo, and that was previously released. But most of the bands gave us new stuff.
Yeah.
And they were inclusive to that CD. And I couldn't believe, I think it took us about, from start to finish, I think it took us like 7-8 months to get it done from thought to release. And it was pretty cool to be able to put a release out like that, because I always watch the bigger labels do stuff like that, whether it was Pop Goes, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I want to do it with the bands that I like. I don't listen to bands like Anne Berlin or Alex is on Fire. I'll listen to bands like that. But I listen to these bands, and I want to put these bands out. And I don't know. I'm really super proud of that comp.
That's awesome. So not a lot of people know this unless they've been listening to the podcast since the very beginning, right? But like, I put out a compilation mixtape once, and it was for a charity. So there was 3 copies only, and they went to a charity. And what it was like, it was every musician that I had on the podcast to that point. Because it was, like I said, it wasn't always just musicians in the early
I think I vaguely remember this.
this was early, like this was like, I think it was 2021 when it happened. So my cousin had a podcast called The Movie Seller, and it was like it was based off of 80s VHS tapes, because he had a collection of them, and he's a few years younger than me, so like he kind of missed some of these movies, you know what I mean? So he would go and he would watch these movies and they'd review them and stuff. But like he had a big thing, because he has a kid who has type 1 diabetes. So they were always doing stuff for the JDRF, and they would always like, hey, if you donate this, you can pick a movie for us to watch, and that kind of thing. So he had this big it was like he did like a 24-hour like podcasting stream thing where he was giving away things. So I was like, hey, let me see if these, all these musicians that I've had on at this point, if they would be interested, if I could use their song for this. And they said yes. So I made 3 cassette tapes. But what I did was like, before each one, I like weaved in, like in the intros were like samples from their episode, right? So it was like,
that's cool.
I had like Lenny Lashley talking about music being his higher power, blah blah blah. Then it cuts into a Lenny Lashley song, and like, let me tell you, I did everything myself, and like, from trying to get it to sound right was the biggest pain in my ass.
Mike could tell you stories.
Yeah, because like I'm trying to level out the voice, like the speaking with the song. And like, I had some songs that were just like super, like clipping super high, and I oh man, it was such a pain, but it was a lot of fun. So I always said, like, I've been trying to work on. I'm just so busy, and like, I know you get this, because like, you work, like you said, you have a podcast, you have a label, you have a family. Like, I've been so busy. Like, every year I'm like, all right, next year I'm going to start a label, and then like it gets around to that time, and I'm like, how I don't have the time. Like,
it's such a art. It's such a task to do.
Yeah.
It really is. It's honestly, there's times where I'll message Mike and be like, dude, like, I'm so like overwhelmed by what's going on. I mean, like when we had to figure out all these releases and stuff, we've had like releases get delayed and stuff. And there's moments where you're just like, why did I do this? Why did I wait till I was 40 years old to tackle something like this? This is a young man's game, dude.
Yes, it is, man. It is. And I'm like, yeah, so like, I've been really struggling with it, because I really want to do it, but at the same time, I'm like, I just don't think I have. So I've recently like been able to accept help, right? Like, it's like, so
that's always a big thing. You got to accept. You got to accept the fact that you need help.
Because last night was the Boston Music Awards, and we've been nominated a few times, and we got nominated, so we were there last night.
Congratulations, man!
Thanks. And they this gentleman who works for like a radio station, I think it's a college station. He was like, hey, can I interview you? I'm like, yeah, sure. But I brought like Arya and Jeff with me. So I was like, they're coming with me, like, because they're part of like what we do. And I was going over, like, he was asking about like the podcast and all the stuff. And I was going over the list of like things, and like, there's like 5 different episodes or 6 different episodes or 6 different types of podcasts that my channel releases. And I'm like, no wonder why I'm always like stressed out and can't do like so. But then like we're talking about it, so like I gave one, Arya took over one of them, so I don't have to worry about, all I have to do with his is I just post it, right? And then just recently we had one we were doing one for the last couple years for the Record Club, like for a recap of like the month before. And I was like, I was so busy. I'm like, if one show has to take a hit, it's gonna have to be this one, right? So I stopped doing it, and then all of a sudden I have a couple of members in there of the Record Club, and they're like, hey, can we do the show? I'm like, yeah, you could take it over. Like, so now I just take the show and I post it, right? And I'm like, this is good. So I'm starting now to do that, but like, so we'll see how we go. But right now I just don't think I can start a label, because like I just have so much. If I can get some more help, like I'm like, yeah, or because like, you know, someone had mentioned, what about articles like on your website for reviews? And I'm like, I will, you can do it, but here's the deal, like you're in charge. Like I'll give you
Yeah,
access to the
I'll
website.
release it, but I'm
Yeah.
not editing it.
I'm
I'm not.
not, yeah, exactly. Like, so I was gonna have Bree was gonna be my editor, and she might still. We haven't put anything up there yet, but like, I was like, hey, like you can be my editor if you want, and like I'll give you full access to the site. You can do whatever you want, like, because she wanted to do like this like blog, and I was like, you could do the blog there. I don't care, you know, like, because I've always had this idea of community, right? Like I wanted this podcast thing to be a community thing, and not just like a local to where I live community, but like across, you know, across the world kind of thing, like for music. And kind of like what you were saying, like because it made me really think about it. Jonathan was like, you know, you're like you were saying, like you have all these friends, and like some have labels, and some do this, and some do that, and all you did was like, hey, let's do this thing together, you know, and like
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing.
Sorry about that.
That was awesome. That was, I'm leaving that in.
She never leaves me alone. The fact that I went 49 minutes without
Yeah,
her even messing with me
that
is
was great, dude. That was great. Anyway, like the biggest thing here is like just the whole like you know, community aspect of it, right? Like the thing that we're all in this together, you know, and like no one's out there like, you know, if you're an indie label and you're trying to compete as opposed to work with, then you probably don't belong in that space. You know what I mean?
exactly. That's the big thing is like you watch, like I remember when I was younger and I would watch some bands or some venues pull janky stuff. And I'm just like, that's not cool, man. You're not in this music to be able to do shit like that. Like you're not trying to make money off of doing this. You're doing it solely because you enjoy doing it. If I go plan an event and I have to pay a certain amount to, you know, to basically pay for the venue that I'm playing, basically, I don't care if I get that money back. As long as it gets in the traveling band, the band that's basically traveling, I make sure they get that money because I know I can't predict how many people are going to walk in that door. You know what I mean? But I always make sure that every band gets paid, and I always make sure to take care of the out of town bands. You know, not that the local bands don't matter, but you know what I mean? Like I always try to make sure because I know they gotta drive 16 hours to the next show. And they're gonna have to live off of, I mean, shit, you can't even live off McDonald's anymore, it's so damn expensive.
You know, I
But
know.
you have to live on ramen and like, you know, make bologna sandwiches on the road because you have to put in the gas tank. And I get that. So when I see people act like stupid in the scene, I'm like, yeah, see, you're not in it for the right reasons. You're in it because you think you can somehow capitalize on this. And I didn't start a label because I wanted to make money. You know what I mean? If I did, I'd be signing much bigger bands and you know, like going being an ass kisser and all those things. And if I was in it for the money, I sure as wouldn't pick the kind of music I cover. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, the subgenre hopping that we do with the label and the podcast. It's like I'm not in it for the money. I just want these bands to be heard, and that's ultimately, you know, I felt that same way 30 years ago. Like, here, check out this mixtape I made. These are incredible bands.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's
You
why I do
know,
the record club. I get
yeah, like it's just
the
it's
records
like
that I can't stop listening to 25, 30 people. You know what I mean?
yeah, I when we do the comp, I look at it like my cracks me up. He goes, John, pick the track listing already. Like I'm literally there. Like I have an app on my phone where I can take the files that I got and kind of put them almost like in a playlist. And then I'll sit there and I'll be like, well, this song ends here. that song doesn't sound like it goes. I do it almost like a mixtape, like a 13-year-old kid making a mixtape.
Hell yeah.
And that's how I handle every compilation we do. Like I will spend weeks
Yeah.
making them perfect. And sometimes I'll go back and go, maybe I should have switched those two tracks around. Well, like too late. It's been out for 3 years. You know what I mean? Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Right on, right on. So is the podcast coming back?
Oh, I want it to.
Yeah.
We stopped at 102 episodes. I won't mention names, but the company we were going through to do the podcast kept changing. And I had an episode that was cut because they had made the transition during that time. You know who I'm talking about. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to put on hold. Maybe I need to wait until I can pay for a service, something like Podbean or something like that, where I actually have an actual computer, soundboard, like a real setup instead of just using my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's uh, to be determined on when that's going to come out. But I didn't kill the podcast. Me and my buddy Sam did some episodes on YouTube. I think there's like 6 episodes out there. We did interviews. We did song reviews. Then Sam got busy. I got busy. So, but eventually it'll come back in some form.
We're busy. Like you got a lot going on, so
And it's just so hard. Like when companies change their formats, I went through 4 different name changes for the podcast, and each one I had to now learn how to edit. I had to learn how to trim. I had to learn how to do all these things. And early on, it was so easy. And the more and more time got on, the more complicated it got. I was like, well, maybe I need to actually do this through a computer and actually do it the proper way, do it for real.
right.
Just do it through a different thing, and then just start like as a refresh moment. But hopefully within the next year, that's the plan. Because I miss doing it. I love doing this, what we're doing. I love bullshitting with people. I love talking. I love sharing stories and geeking out on bands that a lot of people never heard of who might actually, go out and check these bands out. And that's ultimately what I wanted from the podcast. And then the label too is that people would be like, oh, this dude seems pretty cool. This girl seems pretty cool. I want to check out their bands, or I want to check out their label, or I want to check out their art gallery, or whatever they were doing. That's ultimately what I wanted to do, and I miss doing it because at least like once every 2 weeks or once every week, I was able to sit down with somebody either I already knew or somebody I didn't know and talk for anywhere between an hour and 2 hours and do a little bit of editing and put it out. I missed the whole process. It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad I got to do it for the 4 years that it was out there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so where can people find This Is Just a Record Label? Where can they buy CDs? Where can they buy the digital stuff?
You can go to our Bandcamp. It's this is just a record label.bandcamp.com. You'll find all 22 releases I believe we're on. You can also hit us up on Facebook. Just type in This Is Just a Record Label. You can also type in Jonathan Kent 311. I'm on Facebook. On Instagram, I believe it's TIJAP Punk on Instagram and on TikTok. I don't post as much on TikTok, but Facebook and Instagram, I'm pretty consistent. Those are the 2 spots. And also check out, the bands that like I said, we just put out Ricky Rochelle's second release. It's called Second Layer. The Laska Tears brand new album is out now too. They've been getting a lot of attention, a lot of coverage, and well deserved. I love that band so much. I got to interview with them a couple years ago at Mom's Basement Fest, and we built a really good relationship from that experience. And it was an honor to get to put out something by them, because I've loved single thing they've put out. Also, check out Dave Strong, the follow ups, all the bands that we put out. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's not a lot of reward involved in it, but it's so fun watching the process develop and then hold it in your hand when you're done. And I wish I wouldn't have been so pig-headed. Maybe I could have done it a long time ago and didn't realize I could do it. But the fact that I get to do it now is, I enjoy it. There's not one release I'm not proud of.
Hell yeah.
There's not one band on our roster that I wouldn't work with, to the end of time. We have incredible bands. We have incredible fans, incredible support. I don't know. I'm just really proud of it. And I hope people check us out and love what we're doing.
For sure.
Even my projects, which don't seem to really move any units, but that's okay,
What's your project?
I did the Shanks. I did NBS, and most recently Deuter. And Deuter's kind of my focus point moving forward. That's kind of like dance punk, kind of hip hop, kind of like Bloodhound Gang kind of stuff, sophomore jokey stuff.
All right. Well, listen, Jonathan, as we come to a close, I got to say one thing, and I'm gonna bookend this how we opened it, right? With talking about your episode on scene support with Scott. You had mentioned we should do a Sunday morning coffee and Zoom meeting type thing with a bunch of us. And yeah. And I am all for it. I've already told Scott while I was editing that episode, I was laughing and throughout the whole thing. And also I definitely told him to I'm down for a Sunday morning coffee over Zoom.
Do that. Yeah, we should try to do that sometime.
Yeah, for sure. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So
yeah, for sure.
Well, listen, man, thanks. This was fun. So
okay, thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Trev. It's been a lot of fun.
Hell yeah.
I had a blast. Thank you.
Of course. We'll see you soon.